We are in the midst of the Easter season, these 50 days in which we celebrate over and over again the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The liturgy calls this the Great Sunday, a celebration, a renewal of life, a time of joy, as we remember that Christ took on death and sin and even the devil and is victorious. It's a time of freedom. It's a time of the year when our hearts are lifted up. Spring has already become early summer. We're looking forward to the end of school, to graduations, vacation time. This is the time of year when the church especially celebrates the beautiful sacraments of baptism and confirmation and Eucharist, as we've experienced here in our parish. So there's many reasons to sing Alleluia. We read also today from the scriptures about the apostles in their journeys and how they built up these little communities of faith all over the world that they knew. And we see the growth of those churches. And the prophecy of Revelation today points us to a glorious future when all God's promises come true. And with all that in the background, it really seems to me that our gospel is out of place. For the gospel today takes us back to Holy Thursday. It takes us to a moment of deep sadness when Jesus at the Last Supper shows pain in his life as he announces that he is going away and that Judas is about to betray him and that Peter will 3 times deny him. Why do we bring up this kind of sadness in the midst of this time of joy and celebration? Well, the Gospel of John often puts before us the cross of Jesus, but he refers to it as the hour of Jesus or the glory of Jesus. But what's glorious about crucifixion? From the human point of view, absolutely nothing. Crucifixion is nothing but torture, humiliation, shame. But from Jesus' point of view, his going to the cross is the total gift of himself to his Father out of love. It's his total gift of himself to us out of love. Jesus himself, as John quotes him saying, there is no greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's own. And there's a custom in our church that when missionaries are sent out to go to new places and to bring the gospel, they're given a cross, as though to say, now what Jesus did, you also must do. Go forth, bring the love of God to others, and don't worry about what it may cost you, because we know that in those challenging situations there will always be suffering and frustration, sometimes even death. But we don't have to go to the foreign missions in order to do God's work. Our mission begins right at home. The mission of the entire church, the mission of our parish, the mission of every single baptized Christian is expressed in what we call in the gospel today the new commandment: love one another as I have loved you. That's why we don't put the cross away when Easter comes. We see the cross in front of us all year long. The success of the apostles that we read of in the first reading, we're also told, involved much hardship, and many of them ended their lives as martyrs. We also know that this new creation that John speaks of in Revelation, that time when there will not be death or mourning anymore, no more crying or pain, is far, far from realization. I don't expect I'll see it in my lifetime. So the cross remains always among us, always before us, inviting us to love in the same way, to love as Christ loves us, to love one another as Christ loves us, to love our neighbor as Christ loves us, to love our enemies as Christ loves us. Easy to say, very difficult to put into practice, always a challenge. A beautiful description, maybe even a definition of this Christian love is written for us by the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Corinthians, and it's one that's often read at weddings. But I like to use it as an examination of conscience on the commandment, the new commandment of Jesus. For Paul writes and tells us what love is. He says, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in what is right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. Certainly, love tries our patience. Love struggles when we have to listen to the same story again and again, or the same complaint again and again. It's hard to love the disagreeable neighbor, hard to love the opinionated family member, hard to sometimes understand our brother, our sister parishioner, our fellow Catholic, whose ideas and practices of the faith are different from our own. Patient listening, kindness, assuming the good rather than the bad, all these are the way the cross takes shape in our lives as we follow Christ. This is our opportunity in so many moments in our lives to really be Christ for one another, even to be Christ to ourselves when sometimes we recognize our weakness and our failure, to be kind to ourselves, knowing that God is kind to us, and to rely always on the great mercy of the Lord, who has called us as his own. Such is the path of love, the commandment lived out, the path that Jesus marks for us with the cross, the path that we celebrate throughout these days, the path that is our hope and our glory.